Ugh. Yuck. So if you wonder what I work on when it's cold and nasty and rainy outside and I don't feel like being out in the cold garage, then you would need to step into my indoor workshop, and kind of spread out into two locations at the moment. But I've got my small work table here with my lights there, and I have a project going there. And my plants, keep those alive inside during the winter. But what's going on over here is I've just completed a project. I have to put the top back on it, of course, but I've got another carburetor for my Fury out there, my Grand Fury, that I've rebuilt and just about done restoring it to its original condition. And that's just one of these things. That car is a rolling experiment, so I'm just trying to make it run better and better. And I'm not really happy with the Holly, so Holly's going to go away, provided this one works good. I think it will. So I've still got to put I had to clean up and paint the top plate that goes on here, and then I've got the factory sticker for it that goes on the side of it right up here. Just glue that back on, and then it's also got its original tag right there. There's the part number, 8175S, manufactured the 151st day of 1978, I believe that says. So it's all ready to go back on, and so it's going to now go into the completed projects area. And over here, what this mess of parts is where I've disassembled a starter that I'm working on rebuilding. This is one of these old style Mopar starters, and it's a 65 as a matter of fact, and I've got it in pieces. I've got parts here and I've got parts over here, and I've got my book showing me how to do this. These are the harder ones to deal with because you have the housing here, and it's got a shunt here that has to be unsoldered from the brush plate here. It goes to that terminal right there, and then also gets soldered to that. There's a little, if you look in there, it's that little hole right there in the center of the screen. Well, there's another lead that comes from the solenoid, comes through here, and it routes through there, and you wrap those two things on there and they get soldered on. So trust me, it's a real pain to deal with this thing, but I'm teaching myself how to rebuild these. This is the brush plate, and this comes out as a unit, and this whole thing looks awful because it's been sitting for who knows how long in a trunk that got water in it. So I wasn't even sure I could salvage this. I may not be able to, but I want to try, because this starter's never been rebuilt. I can tell that because of the appearance of the aluminum housing over there. It's not been bead blasted, and it's just, I can tell it has never been apart. You can kind of take a look at this number there. That's maybe a little faint, but it's a 2095-150, which is a very common, say it again, very common 60s starter used on everything just about. And the date code on that one is let me see, it's very faint, but it's down below there, and it says 085. It's down below those numbers at the very bottom. 085 means it's the 8th week of 1965, and that was out of a car that was built in April of 65. We know that because that was one of my brother's parts cars, as a matter of fact, so he didn't need the starter. We did some trading, so I'm going to collect some parts. I'm going to go ahead and clean this up and then collect some parts up for it. The solenoid is in pretty rough shape. It's got a lot of pitting on this disc. It's a copper disc, and somewhere else it had, oh yeah, turn around. This is the other part right here. That contacts, makes the contact between those two parts there, and they're both pretty worn. So this thing, the book repeats itself several times that this brush plate holder is serviced as an assembly, which means that you're not supposed to take it apart. If the brushes are worn out, you get another one. And the difference is in these and all the rest of them, this part on the newer ones, like 70 on up, has 2 bolts in it that go through and hold this into the rest of the assembly. And they're more modular. You can take things out and replace them a lot easier than this one. So probably the brushes aren't worn too bad. They say if they're worn down halfway, then you're supposed to replace them. But we'll see. We'll see if I can locate another brush plate for it, an NOS one. I bet I'm not trying to be crude, but I bet I'll be bleeding from the rear end if I have to buy one of those. All right, so I thought I'd just show you guys what I do to keep myself occupied when it's nasty outside and I want to turn some wrenches, or at least some screwdrivers. Thanks for watching. All right, guys, well, I thought I would just wrap this little video up about right here and just show you what I got going on here and what I'm done with. I have this carburetor finished now, totally. And this is not a contours restoration or anything like that, but it looks about as original and stock as I can get it. I even used a little section of original Chrysler striped hose on it there. Get the sticker back on and all that. So I soaked the bottom part of it because they're always natural zinc metal, and then the air horn I just carefully washed it by hand as best as I could because I wanted to retain that finish on it because that's the way they're supposed to look. That's the way they looked original. So anyway, just a fun little thing there. And I did have to replace the pull off on it. It was no good. But all I did was I went into one of my stashes of parts here. This one's called, by the way, Parts for BBD. Harder BBD parts I'm gonna do. So guess what? I found a good pull off in there. And then I'm also continuing on with the starter that I'm working on rebuilding. And I just basically got parts everywhere for it. I've been cleaning up and all that. Gears, shaft, housing here. And having to do some kind of reconstructive stuff on this. I'm going to have to work on this housing a little bit because it's a little hard to see. I've kind of sanded it, but up there on that edge, that was where it was laying in the water, I guess, a little bit, and it kind of eroded that right there, that edge, and it's uneven. It's got a dip in it, and correspondingly, the end cap that goes to it, which was this one, I think it was starting to really rot and corrode right there so much that it actually transferred some metal. So you can see that looks really rough. So I thought I had a good used one just laying around, and it turned out to be no good. Also, it's all corroded and rusted. So I finally dug out one of my part starters, and I always go to the one that's the least desirable, and this is some kind of generic reman, and it has a good cap on it. And I'll show you why you don't ever buy a reman starter. These are supposed to have a metal thrust washer at the end of them. This is not metal. This is paper. And also the little oiling wick in here, right there on that one, right there on that one, it's missing right there. So that's why these things are crap. So I know guys might say, well, you ought to just go get a reman. Why are you rebuilding that starter? Well, that's original starter, as I said before, and I'm not about to ship off an original starter that can be rebuilt to China to be turned into something like that. No thanks. All right, guys, train coming, got to go. So thank you for watching. See ya.